Have you ever picked up an old nickel from a pocket, a coin jar, or a flea market table and wondered if it might be worth far more than 5 cents? What if one ordinary-looking coin from 1964 could spark a treasure hunt that sends collectors searching through millions of nickels across America? Today, we're diving into the fascinating story of the 1964 Thomas Jefferson nickel with no mint mark, a coin that many people overlook, yet one that continues to captivate collectors more than 60 years after it was struck. At first glance, the 1964 Jefferson nickel doesn't seem extraordinary. On the front, you'll find a familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States. On the reverse stands Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia estate, a symbol of American history and architecture. It's a design that Americans had already known for decades by 1964. But here's where things get interesting. The year 1964 was unlike almost any other year in modern American coinage. The United States was facing a growing coin shortage. People were hoarding silver coins, worried that rising silver prices would make them more valuable than their face value. As dimes, quarters, and half dollars disappeared from circulation, the U.S. Mint found itself under immense pressure to produce more coins than ever before. While nickels contained no silver, they were still needed in massive quantities to keep commerce moving. Vending machines, cash registers, and everyday transactions depended on them. As a result, the U.S. Mint entered a period of extraordinary production. The 1964 Jefferson nickel became one of the most heavily produced coins in American history. The coin with no mint mark was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. In 1964, Philadelphia produced an astonishing number of Jefferson nickels, well over 1 billion pieces. That means countless Americans handled these coins in their daily lives. They passed through grocery stores, diners, gas stations, and movie theaters. They rattled in pockets, sat in piggy banks, and disappeared into cash drawers all across the country. So if billions were made, why do collectors still care about this coin? The answer lies in condition, rarity within abundance, and the mysteries hidden among ordinary examples. You see, not all 1964 no-mint mark nickels are equal. Most surviving examples show heavy wear from decades of circulation. Scratches, dents, worn details, and fading surfaces are common. Finding one in average condition is easy. Finding one in exceptional condition is a completely different story. Imagine two identical coins leaving the mint on the same day in 1964. One spends decades being exchanged in stores and eventually ends up worn and damaged. The other is carefully tucked away by a collector and preserved in nearly perfect condition. 60 years later, the difference in value can be dramatic. This is where the excitement begins. Professional grading companies evaluate coins using a numerical scale. The highest grades represent coins that appear almost exactly as they did when they left the mint. For the 1964 Jefferson nickel, collectors pay close attention to coins with sharp details, strong luster, and minimal imperfections. One particularly important feature is known as full steps. If you examine the reverse of a Jefferson nickel, you'll notice the steps leading up to Monticello. On most circulated examples, those steps become worn or weakly struck. However, coins displaying clear, uninterrupted steps are highly desirable. Collectors refer to these as full steps examples. A 1964 no-mint mark nickel with full steps and an exceptionally high grade can command prices that surprise almost anyone. Think about that for a moment. A coin originally worth 5 cents can potentially sell for hundreds, thousands, or even more in extraordinary circumstances, simply because it survived in remarkable condition. And that leads us to one of the most fascinating aspects of coin collecting. Sometimes rarity isn't about how many coins were produced. It's about how many survived in elite condition. This concept confuses many beginners. They assume low mintage automatically means valuable, while high mintage means common. But the coin market often tells a more complicated story. The 1964 no-mint mark Jefferson nickel demonstrates this perfectly. Although billions were struck, Relatively few remain in top-tier condition with exceptional strike quality and full steps designation. As a result, collectors continue searching through old collections, estate sales, and forgotten coin albums hoping to discover an overlooked gem. But there is another layer to this story. Human error. Whenever a mint produces enormous quantities of coins, mistakes can happen. Dies wear out. Machinery experiences problems. Minor variations appear. Over the years, collectors have discovered interesting errors and varieties among 1964 Jefferson Nickels. Some examples feature double details. Others display off-center strikes or die-related abnormalities. While most 1964 nickels are ordinary, unusual error coins can attract significant attention from collectors willing to pay premiums for something unique. Imagine finding a coin that looks slightly different from every other nickel in your collection. Could it be an error? Could it be a rare variety? That possibility is what keeps treasure hunters searching. In many ways, coin collecting is like archaeology in your own home. Every coin carries a story. Every scratch, every mark, every detail connects us to a specific moment in history. And 1964 was certainly a memorable year. America was in the midst of tremendous cultural and social change. The space race was accelerating. The civil rights movement was reshaping the nation. New technologies and new ideas were transforming everyday life. While those historic events unfolded, millions of Jefferson Nickels quietly entered circulation. Think about the journeys these coins may have taken. Perhaps one traveled through New York City during the World's Fair. Maybe another bought a cup of coffee for a factory worker. Another might have passed through the hands of a soldier, a student, or a small business owner. These coins witnessed history firsthand. That connection to the past is one reason collectors become so passionate about numismatics. Coins are more than money. They are tiny metal time capsules. And yet, despite their historical significance, many 1964 nickels remain hidden in plain sight. Coin jars, old dresser drawers, family collections inherited from grandparents, forgotten boxes stored in attics and basements. Some people spend years searching through rolls of nickels from banks, hoping to find a superior example. Others carefully inspect inherited collections, looking for signs of exceptional preservation or valuable varieties. The thrill comes from uncertainty. You never know when an ordinary-looking nickel might turn out to be something special. Perhaps that's why stories about rare coins capture our imagination so powerfully. They remind us that valuable discoveries don't always come from buried treasure chests or remote archaeological sites. Sometimes they come from the spare change sitting right in front of us. The 1964 No Mint Mark Jefferson nickel embodies that idea perfectly. It is both common and potentially valuable, familiar and mysterious, ordinary and extraordinary at the same time. Its massive production makes it accessible to nearly everyone, while its finest examples remain highly sought after by serious collectors. Few coins illustrate this contrast so clearly. So the next time you encounter an old Jefferson nickel dated 1964, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Examine the details. Check the condition. Study the steps on Monticello. Look for unusual characteristics. You might simply have a 5-cent coin, or you might be holding a piece of American history with a story far greater than its face value suggests. And that's the real magic of coin collecting. It's not just about money. It's about discovery. It's about connecting with history. It's about the possibility that something overlooked for decades could suddenly reveal its true significance. So here's a question for you. Have you ever found an old coin in your pocket change that made you stop and wonder about its journey through history? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoy uncovering hidden treasures, fascinating coin stories, and the secrets behind America's most collectible coins, make sure to subscribe and join us for the next adventure. Because the next valuable discovery might already be waiting in your collection, hidden in plain sight, just like the remarkable 1964 No Mint Mark Jefferson nickel. What if I told you that a coin millions of people have handled without a second thought could be hiding a surprising story a fascinating piece of American history, and even a collector's treasure. Imagine reaching into your pocket, finding an ordinary-looking nickel, and discovering that it came from one of the most unusual years in United States coin production. Today, we're diving into the remarkable story of the 1967 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark, a coin that may look common at first glance, but carries a history that continues to intrigue collectors nearly 6 decades later. To understand why the 1967 Jefferson nickel is so special, we need to travel back to the turbulent 1960s. America was experiencing enormous change. The space race was in full swing. The Vietnam War dominated headlines. Cultural movements were reshaping society. Yet behind the scenes, another problem was causing concern in Washington: coin shortages. People across the country were pulling coins out of circulation and saving them. Collectors and speculators believed certain coins would become valuable in the future. As more coins disappeared into collections and drawers, businesses struggled to obtain enough change for daily transactions. The United States Mint faced a serious challenge. How could it keep enough coins moving through the economy? The solution was extraordinary. Beginning in 1965, the Mint temporarily removed mint marks from circulating coins. This policy continued through 1967. Officials believed that collectors were paying too much attention to mint marks and hoarding coins from specific locations. By eliminating mint marks altogether, the government hoped to reduce speculation and encourage coins to remain in circulation. That's why every genuine 1967 Jefferson nickel lacks a mint mark. For many collectors today, that missing mint mark is one of the most fascinating aspects of the coin. What appears to be an omission is actually a deliberate decision tied to a unique chapter in American monetary history. The Jefferson nickel itself had already become a familiar part of American life. Introduced in 1938, it replaced the Buffalo nickel and featured President Thomas Jefferson on the front. The reverse displayed Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia estate. The design was created by sculptor Felix Schlag, whose artwork won a nationwide competition. Little did he know that his creation would become one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. By 1967, the Jefferson nickel had become a silent witness to countless moments in American life. It passed through grocery stores, gas stations, movie theaters, diners, and countless cash registers. Every coin carried its own invisible journey from hand to hand. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. The United States Mint produced an astonishing number of Jefferson nickels in 1967. More than 107 million were struck that year. Because so many were made, most examples remain common today. So why do collectors still pay attention to them? The answer lies in condition. Most 1,967 nickels spent decades circulating through the economy. They were dropped, scratched, worn down, and exchanged thousands of times. Finding one today isn't difficult. Finding one in pristine condition is another story entirely. Imagine 2 identical coins leaving the mint on the same day in 1967. One enters circulation immediately, spending years buying coffee, newspapers, and groceries. The other somehow remains untouched, preserved in nearly perfect condition. Nearly 60 years later, those 2 coins can have dramatically different values. An average circulated 1967 Jefferson nickel is generally worth only face value or slightly above it. But exceptional uncirculated examples can attract significant collector interest. Coins graded at the highest levels by professional grading services have sold for hundreds and sometimes even thousands of dollars. In rare cases, superb gem examples with extraordinary preservation have achieved remarkable auction prices. Think about that for a moment. A coin originally worth just 5 cents could become worth hundreds or even thousands simply because it survived the decades in exceptional condition. And condition isn't the only factor collectors watch for. Error coins add another layer of excitement. Throughout history, mistakes have occasionally occurred during the minting process. Misaligned dies, doubled images, off-center strikes, and other production errors can transform ordinary coins into highly sought after collectibles. Some 1967 Jefferson Nickels exhibit interesting varieties and minting anomalies that attract serious attention from specialists. These errors are often discovered years after the coins enter circulation, creating modern treasure hunts for collectors searching through old collections and coin jars. Imagine finding an unusual nickel that everyone else overlooked for decades. That's the dream that keeps many coin hunters searching. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the 1967 nickel isn't its value. It's what the coin represents. This small piece of metal serves as a time capsule from a pivotal era in American history. When you hold one, you're touching an object created during the presidency of Lyndon B. Johnson. The Apollo program was racing toward the moon. Color television was becoming increasingly common. The world was changing rapidly. Yet this humble nickel quietly endured. It survived economic shifts, technological revolutions, and generations of Americans carrying it in their pockets. How many stories could a single coin tell if it could speak? Did it buy a child's first candy bar in 1968? Did it travel across the country in someone's pocket? Did it sit forgotten in a dresser drawer for decades before being rediscovered? We'll never know. And perhaps that's part of the magic. Every old coin carries mysteries that can never be fully solved. For collectors, this emotional connection often matters more than market value. The thrill isn't always about finding a fortune. Sometimes it's about holding a tangible link to the past. That's especially true with the 1967 Jefferson nickel. Because of the missing mint mark policy, this coin represents a fascinating government experiment that lasted only a few years. It reminds us that even something as ordinary as pocket change can reflect larger economic concerns and national priorities. Today, collectors often search rolls of nickels, estate collections, and inherited coin jars, hoping to find exceptional examples. Most discoveries won't lead to riches, but every search carries the possibility of uncovering something unusual. And that's what makes coin collecting so captivating. Unlike many hobbies, treasures can still be found in everyday places. A forgotten nickel sitting in an old jar could be worth far more than anyone realizes. A carefully preserved 1967 specimen could surprise its owner. An overlooked mint error could be waiting to be discovered. These possibilities keep the hunt alive. As we come to the end of this story, the 1967 no mint mark Jefferson nickel stands as a reminder that value isn't always obvious. At first glance, it's simply a 5-cent coin. But beneath its modest appearance lies a story of government policy, economic challenges, American history, artistic design, and collector fascination. The next time you encounter an old nickel, take a closer look. Check the date. Examine the condition. Look for unusual details. Because hidden among ordinary coins may be a piece of history that has traveled through nearly 6 decades of American life. And who knows? The next remarkable discovery might already be sitting in your pocket, waiting for someone curious enough to notice. If you enjoyed uncovering the story behind the 1967 Jefferson nickel, make sure to subscribe and join us for more fascinating journeys into the world of rare coins, hidden treasures, forgotten history, and incredible discoveries that could be hiding in plain sight. Every coin has a story, and some of the most valuable stories are still waiting to be found. I want you to imagine this. You're digging through a box of old coins that has been sitting untouched for decades. Maybe it belonged to your grandfather. Maybe it came from a garage sale. Most of the coins look ordinary, worn from years of use. Then your eyes stop on a single nickel dated 1985. At first glance, it seems completely common. But what if that small 5-cent coin could be worth far more than its face value? What if hidden among millions of ordinary nickels are rare examples that collectors are willing to pay serious money for? And perhaps the biggest question of all, how can a coin that millions of Americans once carried in their pockets become a modern treasure hunt today? The story of the 1985 P. Thomas Jefferson nickel is far more fascinating than most people realize. To understand why collectors pay attention to this coin, we have to travel back to the mid-1980s. America was changing rapidly. Personal computers were beginning to enter homes. Pop culture was exploding. The Cold War still dominated world politics. Ronald Reagan was serving as president, and millions of Americans used cash every day for nearly every purchase. During that year, the United States Mint was working around the clock to produce coins needed for circulation across the nation. Among them was the Jefferson nickel, a coin that had already become a familiar part of American life. The Jefferson nickel first appeared in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel. Its design honored one of America's most influential founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson was not only the third president of the United States. He was also the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, a diplomat, inventor, architect, and visionary leader whose influence helped shape the nation. On the front of the nickel appears Jefferson's portrait, while the reverse features Monticello, his famous Virginia estate. For decades, Americans carried this design in their pockets without giving it much thought. But every coin tells a story, and the 1985 P. Jefferson nickel tells a story of mass production, hidden rarity, and collector discovery. The letter P on the coin indicates it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Interestingly, Philadelphia did not always place mint marks on nickels. For much of American coin history, coins produced there carried no mint mark at all. That changed over time, and by 1985, the Philadelphia Mint was proudly placing the P mint mark on Jefferson nickels. During that year, approximately 985 million examples were produced. Think about that number for a moment. Nearly 1 billion coins. That sounds like an enormous quantity, and it is. In fact, most 1985 P nickels are still worth only face value in circulated condition. So why do collectors care? Because in the world of coin collecting, rarity is not always about how many coins were made. Sometimes it is about how many survived in exceptional condition. Imagine two identical coins leaving the mint on the same day. One spends decades passing from hand to hand, dropping into cash registers, vending machines, and parking meters. The other somehow avoids circulation entirely. It remains untouched, protected, and preserved. 40 years later, those two coins can have dramatically different values. Condition changes everything. Collectors use grading systems to evaluate how well preserved a coin remains. The highest grades often command astonishing premiums because very few examples survive without scratches, wear, or contact marks. For the 1985 P nickel, ordinary circulated examples may be worth only 5 cents. But pristine examples graded at the highest levels can sell for hundreds of dollars and, in some cases, significantly more depending on certification and market demand. That is where the treasure hunt begins. Some collectors spend years searching through old rolls of nickels, hoping to discover a perfectly preserved specimen. Others search estate sales, inherited collections, and forgotten coin jars. The excitement comes from the possibility that a seemingly ordinary coin could turn out to be extraordinary. And then there are the errors. Every coin collector loves a good mint error story. Mint errors occur when something unexpected happens during production. Perhaps the strike is off-center. Maybe the die develops cracks. Sometimes doubling appears in parts of the design. These mistakes create coins that are different from the millions of normal examples. And collectors often pay significant premiums for genuine errors. The challenge is that real mint errors are much rarer than many people think. Countless people examine their pocket change, hoping to find a valuable mistake. Most never do. But every now and then, someone discovers something remarkable. That possibility keeps collectors searching. What makes the 1985 P nickel particularly interesting is that it belongs to an era many collectors once overlooked. For years, attention focused heavily on older coins from the 19th century and early 20th century. Modern coins often received less excitement because they were considered too common. Then something unexpected happened. Collectors began realizing that high-grade modern coins could be surprisingly scarce. Finding a coin from the 1980s in average condition is easy. Finding one preserved at an elite level is another story entirely. Suddenly, coins that had been ignored for decades started attracting new interest. The 1985 p nickel became part of that movement. There's also something deeply human about this coin. Unlike ancient gold treasures locked away in museums, Jefferson Nickels were part of everyday life. They bought cups of coffee. They rattled around in pockets. They sat in piggy banks. They traveled across America one transaction at a time. Every scratch tells a story. Every mark represents a moment in history. Perhaps a nickel helped pay for a newspaper in New York. Perhaps another crossed the country in a truck driver's pocket. Maybe one sat forgotten in a dresser drawer while generations of a family grew older. Coins connect us to ordinary people in extraordinary ways. That connection is part of what makes collecting so captivating. But there's another mystery surrounding modern coins. How many valuable examples remain undiscovered? No one truly knows. Some may still be hiding inside old coin rolls stored in bank vaults. Others could be sitting in forgotten collections inherited by families who have no idea what they possess. The next valuable specimen might already exist, waiting for someone curious enough to look. That possibility fuels the imagination of collectors worldwide, and it transforms a simple nickel into something much larger. A symbol of discovery, a symbol of history, a symbol of hidden opportunity. The 1985 p Jefferson nickel may never achieve the legendary fame of America's rarest coins. It is not made of gold. It does not date back centuries. And yet it represents something equally powerful. The idea that treasure does not always announce itself. Sometimes treasure looks ordinary. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. Sometimes it is sitting in a jar of loose change on a kitchen shelf. The next time you encounter a 1985 p Jefferson nickel, take a closer look. Check the condition. Examine the details. Look for unusual characteristics or potential errors. Ask yourself where that coin has been and what stories it could tell. Because that small piece of metal has traveled through nearly 4 decades of American history. And who knows? The coin you almost ignored could be the one collectors are searching for. The beauty of coin collecting is that every coin offers a mystery waiting to be solved. Every date has a story. Every mint mark has a history. And every collector begins with a single discovery. So, have you ever found an interesting Jefferson nickel in your pocket change? Do you own a 1985 p nickel that might be worth more than 5 cents? Share your story in the comments below. And if you enjoy uncovering hidden treasures, forgotten history, and coins that could be worth far more than their face value, make sure to subscribe and join us on the next adventure. Because the next great coin discovery might already be hiding in your collection right now.